Hey guys, it's Abby from Abby of Pellinor, and today I'm going to be comparing US YA covers to UK YA covers. So I did this before, just comparing some contemporary covers, if you do want to watch that one, but it was fun, so I thought I'd do it again. This time, I don't know if it's going to be any different to last time, but this time US will be here and UK will be here. That's going to be UK. That's UK. I might forget, but the graphics will be correct. This time, as the title says, it's going to be YA covers that I'm comparing here, so let's get into it. And also, if I'm incorrect at all about any of these covers, if you think that I've got them switched around the wrong way, or that it's just two editions from the same country, let me know down below, but as far as I know, these are different. So, first up we have The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. Both of them, of course, are very, very similar, but kind of inverted in a way. The US cover has got these lines coming out that are all these bright colours with little bits of white in the line section, with the actual letters being white, and the UK cover is the exact reverse. I will say, I think, oddly, I'm going to go with the US one, because I just like the burst of colour and how much colour is on the page, but that's just like what my eye is drawn to and what I prefer. In terms of the design, if I was rating it like critically, I would go with the UK one. I really like how the lines are shown on the UK one. Oh my god, I've just realised that the US one's threads. Like, you've wrapped a thread around a pin and pulled it out to another point. I like the US one. Is that bad? I usually prefer the UK, but I really like the US one. That's really clever. I really like it. The UK one's gorgeous. I think that the hexagonal lines within the title text is done really brilliantly. I love how the lines that come out also have things around them that I assume are linked to the book. I think it's really clever, but I just prefer the US one. Next up is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and quite weirdly here, the US and the UK one are switched to what they usually are. So you'll usually find that if the US book has a person on the cover, that will be a real person, and that the UK we use a graphic. We don't tend to have so many real human beings on our books, and it's exactly reversed here, which is odd. Like, I don't know. I like the UK one more. Why? It's got a face on the cover. So I like the lighting on the face of the UK one, and the text of the title I really like. I know that both of them line up, so it says Thug down the side. I love white. I love white. If you've seen my Bookstagram, the majority of it is books on a white background, but it's just too much. The sign doesn't have enough contrast to the background of the book. There should have been at least like a border around the sign or something, and it just makes it meld in, and whilst that may have been a design choice, I'm not so keen. So I'm going with the UK one for this. Next up is Paper Towns by John Green. Now this is more of a common example of the US one being a photograph and the UK one being illustrated. And ironically, despite what I just said, I like the US one better. I usually prefer UK covers. Just the UK one, it's very much of its time as when it came out. This is like the original Paper Towns UK cover. There have been other renditions of it that have come out more recently, and I would probably prefer them, but just off of the basis of the two original ones. I don't like the UK one. I don't like the rough and ready style of it. I'm sure it works in the context of the book, but I don't know, I just really hate that title. I really hate the title. It looks like someone in a primary school did it. I don't like it. Whereas the US one, I like that the title Paper Towns has been altered in its angle so it looks as though it's on the map, and that we've really focused in on this big red pin. So, what's wrong with me today? Why am I picking the US one? Why? Next up is I'll Give You the Sun by Yandy Nelson, or Jandy Nelson, or I don't know. In my head it's Yandy, but I also have like Germanic leanings, so I'm sorry. I like the US one. What's happening? I really like the US one here. This is very much a typical UK versus US in that the UK is illustrated and the US, whilst it is illustrated, it doesn't have that kind of hand-drawn style. It's a lot more computerised. But I much prefer the font on that one. I love the bursts of colours coming out. Obviously the UK one makes sense, it's bright yellow, it's got a sun, I'll give you the sun. That makes perfect sense, but I just prefer the multicoloured nature with the pure white background of the US cover versus the UK one. The UK one just looks childish. Interesting. So I think the UK one looks childish. Of course it is technically a kid's book, it's YA. If you've read this, I have not. I've bought this book, I've bought that yellow edition for a friend, but I've not read it myself. If you've read it, let me know. Is it a childish YA or is it more mature YA? Because I'm curious now. But I'm picking the US one. Then we've got Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I'm picking the UK one, guys. 100% picking the UK one. This is a more traditional example. Oh look, the US has an actual physical human being on the cover. The UK's went with the drawing. I much prefer the drawing on the cover. It allows for more personal interpretation in your head of the character, because of course you know it's a drawing, so you're like, oh, maybe they look like this, maybe they look like that, whereas you see a photo and it's like, that's not what I think of in my head when I think of Selena Sladothian. At all. No. I also prefer the UK font, only slightly. I wouldn't have minded the US font, but I do prefer the UK one, and I just, because it's an illustration, it can meld into the background better, it matches the background better, so the hair of course matches the whatever background it is. It seems to be like a mixture of lightning and trees, I don't know, whereas with the person on the background it's a very stark contrast. I've read this one, surprisingly, and both work for the actual book itself. Like, I do really like the background of the US one, it works with the city that is in the book, but I just don't like the cover. Maybe if they'd had like an illustration on that one, then it would have been a harder choice, but no. Much prefer the UK one. Then we've got Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Grisha trilogy. I haven't read it yet, but I have read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I have the UK edition of this on my shelves. I, as of right now, prefer the UK one. I say as of right now because it could depend on what I read. I know the US one at the bottom, it does have that kind of Russian influence, and obviously I haven't read the book yet, but it could be quite influenced by that, in which case I would be leaning towards the US cover for having the thematic links. They do both have the antlers. In the US one it's the silver coming up around the buildings. In the UK one it's a great big deer slapped on the front. But I really like the blue with kind of the like cut out effect. I don't think I can pick. I don't think I can pick. Ignore everything I just said, I'm picking the US one. In my head I was just like, okay, what if that was the UK one? Straight away I picked it. I was like, I think you're being a wee bit biased there. Just a wee bit. No, the UK one's too obvious. Not obvious, obviously I haven't read the book, I don't know if deers are in it, but the US one, I really like the red inside of the black font of the title. I like the kind of similar thematic swirls that the UK one has, but it's just done in a more beautiful way actually, so yeah, I prefer the US one. That was unexpected. And then lastly we have City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. Now we do actually have another UK edition. The reason why I'm going with this one, which I think is also sometimes available in the US, but this tends to be the distinction. The reason I'm going with this one and not this one, sorry editing Abby, is because this one looks very similar to the cover I have of the Pellinor series, so I'm going to be biased towards that. Like, it looks like the Pellinor series, my favourite ever series. So that's why I'm doing it with these two instead, because that one's just too much of an easy bias, and also it happens to be the edition that I own. So I prefer the UK one, even though they both have people on the cover. But the UK one, the colouring used on the person makes it look slightly more like an illustration. It doesn't look quite so much just like a photo, and secondly it's a lot smaller of an influence. It doesn't have this great big bloke just like hi. It is just like kind of a smaller area. They're actually actively doing something rather than just standing there. I am a human, I'm in the book. It's actually related to the contents of the book. It's actually doing something. I do like the skyline in the US one, but obviously that is just like New York with the underworld underneath. So I do think that's clever. I do like that, but just having the person just nah. So US one, picking the UK for this one. Those are the only YA covers that I'm going to be comparing today. I picked the US ones a lot more often than I thought. I'm going to be doing this for like a few different videos, and it's going to be interesting to see what I end up picking most often by the end of it, because I really thought it was going to be like UK all the way. But at least in this round, I'm pretty sure the US won. Let me know down in the comments below which covers you preferred. In the description I'm going to leave a list of the books, so you can just copy and paste it and then put UK or US after it. And if you have like a preferred cover from a different country, whether that's Australia, Germany, Afghanistan, I don't know, just yeah, if you've got another like different edition that you prefer the cover of for any of these, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!